Okay, this video is to help you figure out how to cut a shape out from one of your textured pages that are now colored. This one is not colored because the one I just added color to is still wet. You don't want to try to work with it when it's wet. So I'm not going to wait for it to dry. So I'm just going to demonstrate cutting out an irregular shape onto out of my textured shape. So the first thing is you got to make sure you have enough of your texture to fit the shape, and you kind of have to just gauge that. You might have to create more of your texture to cover the shape. And remember, I'm all about you also creating your own textures to use in addition to the texture that you had to create as part of the assignment. And you should use it in a different texture in more than one spot in this artwork, or else it's just going to look odd if it's just in one little area. So to keep your drawing, your collage balanced, you need your texture, some texture, added and collaged on in more than one spot, or else it's just going to look kind of spotty and like it doesn't belong. So you might have to create more texture or find some texture or some additional fabric to use. But it's kind of hard for me to trace the shape on here because I got all this cool texture on there I can't see through. So the best thing to do is to get a clean sheet of the printer paper. And we're pretending that this is part of my drawing, that I have, a person over here doing something. And by the way, I really can draw. I'll be glad to show you any of my paintings. But we're just pretending that this is my large drawing that is completed. I've erased the grid because Miss Smith said that it was proficient or at least passing and maybe even advanced. So I'm ready to move on. Otherwise, you would not be seeing this video. So you're ready to move on. So you take your drawing, and you've already done it in pen, and you've erased the grid, and you put a fresh sheet of the printer paper, which is kind of thin. And now, because there's no texture on this one, if I get close, I can just see the line through the paper. I can just see it. It's hard to see through the camera, but I just see it. Let me just move it for a second here. It's right there, and I just barely see through it, but I do see through it. Whereas, if I put the texture over it, I cannot see anything through there. So that's why we're using a clean sheet of paper first to trace whatever the shape is. Okay, I'm going to put the camera back. Hope it stays here. Stay. Don't fall. Okay, so I can just see the shape. And now I'm going to carefully trace the shape that I want to cut out onto my fresh sheet. Okay, then I need to run and get scissors. So now this is my drawing, so I'm not drawing anymore on my drawing, and I'm certainly not going to cut up my drawing. But I do need to now cut this shape out, and that's going to go there eventually, right? So I'm going to run and get my scissors, and you are too. Otherwise, you're going to have to, carefully tear it, which sounds like a real pain in the butt. So you might want to run to Walgreens and get some scissors if you don't have any already, or maybe borrow some from a neighbor or a friend. I'm going to put you on pause and go get my scissors. Okay, I got my scissors. First step is always warm them up. No, just kidding. They're ready to go. And now we're going to cut this shape out. And you're probably like, well, Miss Smith, what? I don't want to use this plain white paper. Well, you're right, but the first step is to cut it out. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to put it on pause. I'm going to finish cutting it out. And a little word to the wise when you're cutting, open the scissors all the way. Never try to turn your scissors. Instead, you open it up all the way and you close the scissors all the way. And I'm just watching the line right here. All right? And then I can open them up all the way. When I see people making little cuts like that, that's when they're not being precise. You put it down on the line, and you slowly close the scissors as you turn the paper. Let me show you what I mean. So I always hold the scissors going away from me, but watch what I mean by turning the paper. See how I turn the paper, not the scissors? Now I'm not going to cut any more into my shape, so I'm going to come at it from a different angle. But I want to get right on the line and be as precise as possible for my template. So I know what shape I'm going to be cutting out. All right, so now I have a template that will fit right on the shape, right? So it's pretty much an exact copy of the shape. Well, our next step is get that texture, put the template over, and I would recommend getting a colored pencil, which I need to go do right now. So you go get your colored pencil. Okay, so it's really important that you remember that I don't have a colored pencil right this minute, so I'm just using a colored marker. That your paper should be painted but dried. And now I'm going to trace around my template. And I bet you can guess what I'm going to do after I traced around my template. And I want to have the line be right along the edge of the shape. And I move the paper together. Notice how my left hand has not lifted up because I don't want my template to move around. So keep your template in one spot so it doesn't move around. Notice how if I need to move my left hand, my right hand takes over. So you should never leave your paper without being held down because, even just breathing on it could cause it to move. So I'm tracing all the way around and I'm being as precise as possible. So if you happen to use red paint or paint with red in it, you probably wouldn't want to use a red colored pencil. If you had, use the opposite of red, which would be green. If you have green paint, then you would probably use red colored pencil to trace around. So now you can see I have that shape and I can just see the color, right? And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut it out now. So I will know that, and I'm going to cut just inside my line because I don't want that colored pencil to show. I mean, unless you have somehow planned that into your design. The green is not, it was just there to help you. So you just cut just inside the green, or the line that you created, just so you can see. Don't cut outside the line, and try not to have it show. Okay, now, remember, this is just one shape that I'm cutting out that I could apply to my drawing. You need to do more than one. You need to be creative, maybe find some different textures to use or make some more textures. I mean, unless, you're looking for some sort of basic grade, which is not what you want to do. And now it looks to me like I am ready to glue that down. So it's time for you to go find some glue to glue that down. And when you glue it down, remember, glue goes on the edges, because if you hold the edges down, the center will follow. So some mistakes to avoid. If I had cut it out backwards, I wouldn't see the design as well. So make sure that when you remove your template, I've already lost my template. Okay, there it is. So when you remove the template, it's important that you not flip it over and put it onto the texture. When you remove the template from the first piece of paper, you should pick it up, move it over, and put it on top without flipping. Okay, because you're going to want the front side of your design to show. And hey, if it happens, then just create some more texture. By the way, the second time you make a texture, it always looks better anyway. And, we've only had 3 weeks to make the texture. So, could have made more. I said in the texture videos that you should have a full page anyway. So you could go look through some magazines. You could go look through some other things for different colors and textures of paper and material that you could use to cut out in the same fashion and then glue on. But before you do any gluing, you should probably paint or use colored pencil and add color to everywhere on the collage. You will need to mix colors together when you're using your watercolor, and also layering colors together using your colored pencil. I will have a video on that too.